Hey everybody, this is George Kramb back with another episode of the Patient Pod. I am actually here today with an incredible guest. Her name is Joy Duemke. She has an incredible background, all kind of like in the med tech, diagnostics industry. And I'm excited to kind of learn a little bit more about her background. But Joy, great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so Joy, I actually spent some time like researching a little bit about your journey. It's kind of funny. You like started, well, I mean, you had a couple earlier jobs, but you spent a lot of time at Terumo, and then you left, and then you came back. But why don't you
Yep.
start at the beginning? Like, tell us a little bit about Terumo, like what you enjoyed doing, like how did you kind of like climb the ranks a little bit? Because you were there for like what, the first thing, like almost 10, 11 years, something like that?
Yeah, I was there 10, 11, all in, I'm about 15 years. Let's not do the math too specifically because it would date me. But I've been with the company now for quite some time, and we're all about blood across a number of different indications and places in the hospital and patient groups. And so I've loved it because there's always something new to learn, and it's so broad in its application. So it keeps me busy. I'm still learning every day about it. So it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. So, but like where you spend majority of your time, it seemed like you were kind of in the marketing, you kind of had went like a regional marketing. But like walk me a little bit through that. Like what drew you to marketing?
Yeah. So I'll try not to be boring and be brief, but I'll just give you the highlights. I was in finance. I was in financial derivatives before I joined Termo BCT. And I really missed feeling personally connected with the product and with the customer. And so I really wanted to get into healthcare, and I joined in a marketing communications role, which was a bit of a step down, but I wanted to cross over into another technical industry because I loved kind of trying to market and simplify things and make them accessible that were highly technical at the time. So I joined in the marketing communications department, and I learned a lot about how to communicate about highly technical devices to a technical audience, and how to translate those scientific value propositions. And also, especially when you're in med tech, the breadth is huge. So you have a lot of stakeholders you're working with. And I became noted for being able to herd cats and drive results, which is not, I think, in the leadership competencies book. But then I was asked to join our medical affairs group because we had a lot of brilliant people in the field doing great things, but it wasn't clear how it connected with the company strategy. And so they needed almost a marketing skill set in that highly scientific group. And I have to say that was the best and most humbling experience in my whole career.
No,
As
tell me more. Tell me
marketing,
more. Like I
well, so
love hearing stuff like this.
I feel like as marketers, we almost benefit from guessing, right? Sometimes you see a couple of data points and you might start to draw themes and see strategy and pull fabric together. Like that's why we are marketers. But when you're in med device and scientific, you have to be careful. You can't guess. And you're working with people that are much smarter than you are.
Oh yeah.
And so I really learned about how to balance that marketing skill set with, really rolling up your sleeves and learning as much as you can about the real science and how it works and how to interact with key opinion leaders and review scientific studies. And so I got sort of a lesson in humility and a bath by fire from some very smart people that were willing to teach me, and really becoming more aware of your frontier of knowledge and always asking questions, but with humility and knowing your timing. And then I
Yeah.
was able to kind of take that and really build a technical marketing skill set, but then bring marketing skills to it. So I developed our first investigator initiated grant program. I built a centralized approach to advisory boards. Then we'd see really cool ideas from these key opinion leaders on new uses of our devices or adjacent uses.
Yeah.
So bringing those in with business cases and exploring them. So it was really, really exciting, that part of my career, and that translated to some other opportunities.
So you mentioned something that was like, hey, I learned from really smart people. Like, did you have a mentor that kind of like helped you like kind of shape your career?
Absolutely. I've had a number of them. And what I found is there's something to learn from everybody, even your worst leaders, what not to do. But usually everyone has a skill that you can learn from. I had a leader when I was in marketing communications named Lisa Hayes, and she taught me to always assume positive intent, even when you know it's not, because that's the way to keep the momentum going forward. And then I had a great leader named Eric Buens that told me, hey, none of that MBA bullshit. Forgive me if we're not allowed to say that. Like, speak to me in plain terms, driven by data, and then tie it together briefly, please.
Yeah.
And so some of these practical guidelines are really powerful. And I've got a fantastic leader in my role today that just knows so much about the business and our patients, that you don't get tied up in the intellectualism of driving commercialization. It always comes down to, what does this mean, right? So I've been very lucky with leaders over my career.
So it's funny, like, so my background, I come from, I spent about 5 or 6 years in a sales position in the med device space. And it was funny because, like, you're absolutely right. Like, I'd have to balance this way of, like, how do I make sure when I'm communicating with a surgeon or a physician, like, how do I make sure I'm putting in enough scientific knowledge, but also kind of like just talking to them in plain English. So I'm not like reading off stats and statistics and whatever, right? It's like finding that mixture of, like, people want to be talked to in a way that they can understand while simultaneously still sounding like you know what you're talking about when it comes to your product or your industry.
Well, when you're digging into it there, I find that people think they need to learn what the physician knows to be able to speak to them.
Yeah.
They learn that, they know how to do that. What you need to own and be confident about, with the right caveats, is where what they know overlaps with what you know as an expert in your particular device or therapy, right?
Mhm.
And so asking the right questions to bridge that gap, that's the conversation they want to have. And they want you to come in confidently and talk about how your device impacts their ability to treat patients or solve problems within their unit or whatever it is. So that's the big thing. You don't need to spend all sorts of time trying to get your MD. But I think, deferring to them on that piece and then really engaging on some key questions that start to lead you down that middle overlap, that's where it can be really powerful.
Yeah. And then, okay, so after that, you took a small little stint at a company called, I think it's something like that.
Polaris, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in between, so I'll bridge to there if it's okay. As I brought these cool ideas in, we only had, and I find this is common in med device particularly, we had product managers. And that's very powerful, and that's a skill set into its own. But it also isn't necessarily market experts on how to grow a market or
Yeah.
understand something that's not just the faster horse if you go to the Henry Ford. So as I brought these ideas for new applications for the devices, and we said, you know what, we need a strategic marketing role. We need something that's more long range thinking. And so I was recruited back into global marketing from Med Affairs to kind of drive upstream strategy.
Yeah.
And we also, that was the first time, at least in our company, we had looked at clinical marketing. So I took that marketing again and the medical, and I drove sort of our clinical strategies, which then became not just about here's how the device performs, but it also became about, well, what's the reimbursement strategy and
Yeah.
the patient pathway, and who are the key organizations that are shaping the use of our device upstream. And so I did that for many years globally, and that was really interesting. And then I really had missed being on the ground and talking to KOLs. So I moved back into a regional marketing role where I could really see where the work kind of hits the road. It's not the 5-year vision, it's the one. So I did regional marketing for quite some time. But sometimes you think someday I want to do startup and that will be so exciting. And I have to say cell and gene therapy continues to be very exciting, but it's one part of our portfolio. So a dear friend of mine and a leader named Mark Flower was at Solaris at the time and recruited me to do marketing at Solaris. So I said, let's do Startupville. And I went to Solaris for a short period, and it was fantastic. And they're working on really cool technology. But I did learn that I wasn't quite ready for startup, at least in that phase. And I missed developing a team. I missed the breadth. And my boss kept texting me pictures of my office with my name still on it. It was nice to come back to Terumo.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're back. Welcome back with open arms.
Yeah,
And so
I'm lucky.
yeah, well, it's okay. So from there, though, like, I was like reading a little bit about what you do. So you kind of have this like balance of, like, product, you work with patients, you still have the KOL, like, physician element. Like, how do you balance all of those different, like, stakeholders?
Probably a lot like an ER triages thing.
Dude, tell me
So
more. Yeah, dive into it.
yeah, so we're a little different in our marketing organization, and I'm not sure there's a perfect way to do it, but my job in regional, especially med device, it gets so technical given the complexity of a device versus maybe a pill or a bag. We have business units because they have to specialize in the complexity of doing that therapy. But what's nice about being in a regional role is regardless of what business unit or platform comes at you, you're trying to make sure that story comes cohesively together to a customer point or
Yeah.
for a particular patient. And so that's my job is kind of 1 year before a product is available, making sure we have excellent customer experiences, that patients are able to access it, and that we're able to realize some of our goals with acceptance. So that's what I do today. And so I prioritize against those goals exactly, right? Out of all the portfolio of things we're doing, where can we have the most impact? Where are we positioned uniquely? Like it's back to your core marketing. What's
Yeah.
the
Like the
highest
fundamentals.
revenue, uniquely positioned that we are in a position to feasibly do? I will say one thing we've gotten more and more passionate about. I've had the opportunity to work with AdvaMed on leading our patient engagement strategies. So
Okay.
again, harkening back to my med affairs experiences, I've been really passionate about doing that, particularly in sickle cell. And we on our marketing team have really learned the importance of engaging with patients and patient engagement groups. In med tech, sometimes you feel pretty far from the patient. You
Yeah,
defer to the physician. But if that experience and the training and the guidelines aren't ultimately going to fit the patient need, it doesn't work.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
we just, as a key example, hired a community marketing manager role. And I found that that's been an important way to make our marketing strategies real. You get caught up in marketing qualified leads and social media and all these nerdy marketing things and how are your metrics? And I've gotten very passionate about maybe it's old school. Like it's about the relationships you've created. It's about establishing local networks. I think everybody's exhausted post COVID with all the digital. And so we have been, to your point about prioritization, less about like, hey, do we do social media or just push this thing, but more how do we build a network to make a particular change? Because it's so complex these days where we can bring together industry, the patient, the physicians, and actually, because these problems aren't easy to solve, right? And so we started a Bet on Blood initiative to drive some of that. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm rambling a bit, but
No,
those are
you're
some of
awesome.
the things.
You're kind of preaching to the choir. I mean, that's what we do here at Patient Partner is like, we believe that industry wants to get close to patients and they want to make sure that they're doing everything and launching a product with the patient in mind. And like that's kind of how we've positioned our business is like, how do you help a patient really understand your product and your journey and your therapy? And our whole thesis and mantra here is like, why don't we connect them with another patient who's currently taking that therapy, right? How do we make those connections accessible, relatable, intimate, and scalable at the same time? So I'm fully aligned with everything you say, and it's like I think not enough. Well, I think it's very easy for people in the industry to kind of put the blinders on where their managers are going, what are the metrics, blah, blah, and they kind of get focused in on that. And then it's almost, you almost have to have like a out of body experience, but it's like, well, hold on, right? What are we all doing here? We're focusing on making a product that's going to enhance the life of patients. We need to bring the patient voice back in, right?
Absolutely. And you find the most, as we talk about prioritization, you can go through a whole strategic plan and you can have a workout group and there can be a tiger team and you can have all these layers to do these things. But honestly, just get in the field and talk, find some people that are really smart that you connect with and have some conversations about how you can help in your therapy. And it's just amazing what you find. We had a roundtable with patients, and sometimes it's just a couple key tactics that you can change and provide, and you could say it's not marketing, but it's solving problems. And ultimately that is real practical marketing. And, I, for example, I led marketing excellence for the company for a few years here too, because I'm really passionate about marketing. And you can spend all day on segmentation and value proposition and all these things. And I'll find a marketer who spends hours, weeks doing all this. And I look at their value proposition and it's like a page long of something you would never say to someone. Right?
Yeah.
And we get wrapped up internally, but it's so important to just talk to those key external players, those physicians that are willing to have an authentic conversation with you, those patient groups. And I have to say, the industry has done a great job pushing patient engagement as well. And the FDA is listening more.
Yeah.
You see more regulatory and professional bodies reaching out more. And it's sad it takes us this long to figure that out because we got so wound up in the development sometimes, but that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you, which is like, okay, so for somebody listening, and let's say they're in, let's say, a similar role at a different company, like what's like one piece of advice that you would give to them to help incorporate, or to help incorporate the patient back into whether it's brand strategy or some sort of 2026 planning initiative?
I mean, absolutely, they need to just start going out and talking to patients, number one, right? And sit down and experience what the pathway to get the therapy was, what the experience is like, and what are the challenges and opportunities. I mean, I feel like it's a little basic, but just start with having some conversations with your patients
Yeah.
and listening and not coming. I want to talk to patients about my idea. You
No,
just
you're totally right.
you just need to listen to them first before you have the idea, and then you can continue to build the relationship to build something better.
Yeah, it's funny. So one of the things that we do is anytime we start with a new product or a new company or in a new disease state, that's we find a patient that has gone through the journey with this like particular therapy. But you're spot on. What we do is we like act like you're the patient. We like, Joy, walk me through your day just from like the moment you wake up, the moment you go to bed, like give me all the details. Like what exactly does your day look like? And then you'll start learning, right? Oh, I wake up and it's like I know I have to eat X, Y, and Z before I take my medication. And when I take my medication, I know I'm gonna feel kind of crappy, so I can't drive to work 30 minutes. I have to wait 30 minutes and then I can drive to. So it's like you learn all of these things that help your product, then help you go to market, but it's just, you're not phrasing it in the way of like, let me tell you about this shiny thing that we have and how great it could help you. Because it's like you need to understand where a patient's at today and how does your product kind of fit into that, and make patients' lives easier, better, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we sat down with our patients, and ultimately, you could say our only problem is from the point they're hooked up to that device, how well it goes. But what we realized, for example, is if you can't access the blood in someone's body, in the case of our therapy, then the therapy is not happening. But
Yeah,
even just little things about educating about hydration, or when certain types of vascular access might be necessary, or partnering with another technology company to make those safer, more accessible vascular access options available, like that's going to unlock growth for us. It has nothing to do with our device, right? But that's real commercialization strategy.
yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, well, one last thing, I do this in all of our my interviews. I call it the hot take. So Joy, walk me through like what is one thought, belief, stance that you have that maybe the industry is not seeing today, or might be a little bit contrarian against what most people in the industry think and see.
I would say my hot take, or at least my latest inspiration and insight for my own growth, has been to just go local and build community. I think we get isolated in our office spaces or our work at home spaces, and we forget that people are exhausted by the screens, and they're exhausted with being overwhelmed with information, and they're calling their friends, and they're calling their neighbor that once knew somebody that had a similar diagnosis or challenges. And so what we need to do is really get into those local communities and be part of that conversation and help enable our therapy to be available, and have the humility to know your therapy isn't the only one. It's about picking the right group where you can have the most impact to help, and that's good marketing.
Yeah, love it. Joy, I appreciate the conversation. This has been fun. This has been educational, and man, what a journey. So thank you. So, hey, if the listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
If anybody wants to reach out to me, if they could just contact through LinkedIn, reference the show, I'd love to connect, and look forward to continuing conversation. I love new ideas and connections.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll make sure to add your LinkedIn URL in the
That'd be great.
show notes so people can find it pretty easily. But
Yeah.
Joy, thank you for the conversation. And for the listeners out there, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.